Is rage bait the correct term? Anyway, we're looking at fantasy basketball waiver wires, who's to be added, who has been added, who's been dropped, and who sits alongside at the right hand of the Throne Master. Is that a real term? It probably isn't, but Michael Bolton, you're here?
Thanks, Josh. It's Michael Bolton here, and it's time for another episode of the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Podcast. Let's get to it.
Let's get to it, indeed.
You are Locked On Fantasy, your daily NBA fantasy podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Podcast, brought to you by Basketball Monster. My name is Josh Lloyd, and if I was getting a sign to be put behind me, surely I have to go to LC Signs. I'm also the lead fantasy analyst at basketballmonster.com, and you can find me on Blue Sky at joshloyd.bsky.social, on Twitter at redrock_bball, on TikTok at redrock_bball, and on Instagram at Locked On Fantasy Basketball. Today's episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. Now is the perfect time to join. Download the app today, use the code LOCKEDONNBA, and get $50 instantly when you play your first $5 lineup. That is right. There is no need to win to get the bonus. It is guaranteed. PrizePicks. Run your game. Also, LockedOnDaily.com. Go there, find the newsletter for your favorite team. It's there. You sign up and it gets into your inbox. You could also double bang and subscribe and hit all those thumbs over here on the video. All right, we are talking waiver wire. Like I said, it is National DJ Day. So any of you want to remix this show, well, this is your day to go ahead and do it. That or we're added into the Grease Mega Mix. Either one. I'm not really fussed how you want to do it. Let's talk about the fantasy basketball waiver wire. Let's just start where we like to start these shows, or where I like to start them anyway, is the most added players over the last 48 hours on Basketball Monster. The number one most added player, I was very, very surprised to open up the app and see that Kyshawn George was the number one most added player. I was like, okay, what am I missing here? I still don't really know why he is the most added player. I know that like 2 games ago he had a very big performance, but like what? I don't get it. I do get it because the Wizards play again on Sunday and they had the weekend back-to-back. So I know that's part of it. But George has played 30 minutes each of the last 2 games. One was good, one was bad. He's been solid at times. But I just didn't expect that Kyshawn George was going to be the most added player. I don't think that he needs to be added, but it is the perfect illustration of how volume can be important when we're talking about short-term stuff. Is Kyshawn George great? No. Could he be good? Maybe. I don't know. He might be. But if you get, like, over the weekend, 60 minutes out of one waiver app, that's pretty good value. Because it's actually literally impossible to get that many minutes out of one game. So that's a great illustration where you look at it and go, what the hell? What is this? Why are we adding Kyshawn George? He's very up and down. There's no long-term value. And long-term is a thing. All right? And this is all going to always, and it's why with everything we say, and sometimes I over-explain, sometimes I under-explain. Right? And that's always going to depend on the way that the audience takes things. But the context behind anything is going to be dependent on individual league settings, where you are in the standings, what your roster looks like. There might be a guy who's a great ad, but it doesn't work for 4 weeks. But you're just holding and you're waiting. Or you might be like, I need something literally right now. And when it dies off in 3 days, that's cool, I move on. And both can be correct as the right move. Both can be incorrect as the right move, depending on the individual circumstance. So is George fine to add now? Sure. All right. Do I think that there's much long-term, consistent top 110, top 100 numbers? No, I don't think that'll be the case. But that's okay. For some it works, for some it doesn't. The second most added player is Steph Castle, who, again, has been bad the majority of the season. The last 3 games, he's been very good. The volume is up, the scoring is up, the efficiency is up. And while Jeremy Sohan is out, he's got the opportunity to be good. I don't think that there's a long-term thing there. I don't think that he's turned into this consistent top 100 player. But it's rolling hot at the moment. So what do? We get ahead of it. We see what happens. You can do it. If you miss out, I also don't think it's going to be a long-term thing. So it's okay, I think. The next most added player is Wendell Carter Jr., who his numbers have been all right. They've been okay. It'll be very interesting to see what happens when Goga Bitadze returns. He's still out for Sunday. And how that all plays in with Paolo back. I do think that Wendell has a massive chance, and probably more than 50-50 at this point, to start, even when Goga returns, because I do think that Wendell and Paolo work a little bit better together. It doesn't mean that Wendell needs to be rostered, but again, we're talking about a guy that's played 32 and 33 minutes the last 2 games. That's pretty useful, and he plays on Sunday. Long term, don't really see it as a game changer. But often, and this is another one of those key sort of things that I talk about with fantasy, is that we can talk about, do you drop this guy? Or who are you going to find better on the waiver? That doesn't matter. Well, it does matter. I don't want to sound glib. It does matter a little bit, but it's all about like that roster spot. Can I turn it into 3 days of one top 70 player and then 3 days of another guy running top 80, or 3 days of another guy with a 3-game in 4 night who might be top 80 over that period, and then turn that into another 3 days? Like, is that more valuable than holding on to the guy who's the 120th best player, who might pop in 5 weeks and then put up a top 80 run for a week himself? Like, those are the questions that, and honestly, there's no clear-cut answer to it. But I think it's a better way, because the vast majority of thoughts are, who do you find better off the wire? And I think that's the incorrect way to approach it for the vast majority of leagues. Bryce Sensabaugh, the 4th most added player. The Jazz, as we know, are fully shenaniganizing everything. We've got these doubtful garbage from Collins and Markkanen, and these guys, they've packed it in very early. Sensabaugh is going to get a lot of shots. There are going to be bad games. He has got the fantasy profile of a guy who is going to have some absolute bangers, like some huge, huge games. And he's going to have the games where he has 10, 1, and 0 on 23% shooting, and you go, this guy is just empty calories, which is also true. But they are going to need situations when Collins is not there, or out, or whatever, and Sexton's not there, and Markkanen's not playing. Someone's going to need to generate shots. I know it's not going to be Cody Williams, but it will be Bryce Sensabaugh. So yeah, I think he's fine to add. Just, again, until things change. And they might not. They might actually change for the good for Sensabaugh. The 5th most added player is Oubre Drummond. All right, we gotta do this. We gotta do it. He's like cooked. He's so bad. It doesn't even matter to me that what's his name's out, that Embiid's out. Drummond played 27 minutes on Saturday. He is out on Sunday. Gershon Yabusele's in the mix. He got outplayed by Adem Bona. And yeah, I know Embiid's out, but we've run through this 3-4 times already this season with Embiid being out and Drummond getting starts. It's not good enough. Don't add him. I wouldn't anyway. And the last one there is Ryan Dunn, who I think is obviously getting a boost with Bradley Beal out. And the Bradley Beal out thing is, it's a big thing because it's like 30, 31 minutes off the bench. And that can impact Allen, O'Neal. It can impact Dunn. It actually can impact your mate Nick Richards too a little bit. We would need to see how it all works. But for now, Dunn is putting up solid enough numbers. Not that I love it as a long-term thing. But I added him in a couple of leagues just to see over the next day or two. And then I'll move on if I need to. And I think I probably will end up moving on. But he's playing well. There's no debating that part of it. The most added players on Yahoo over the last 24 hours. Number 1 is Luguentz Dort. Dort has been putting up some very strong numbers. Again, a lot of the Yahoo most ads are skewed to what is happening this very day, and especially with a situation where Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and the Bronco Jalen Williams are both questionable for Sunday, which, again, makes sense. They had a busy period, and they play the Nets, and then they play the Jazz. So, yeah, it is not a surprise if these guys sit this game. Dort might take, he might end up taking 15 shots. Now, that could be absolutely horrific, or it could be great. But he is always a stream option in these spots. Scoot Henderson, the 2nd most added player. What I liked last game was that he still played good minutes. What I didn't like is they immediately moved him to the bench. It's crazy that they did it, but in that game, both Shaedon Sharpe and Jeremy Grant, who sucks like the worst, they played limited minutes because they got cooked, and Scoot was better than them. I do not understand the hesitance to play Scoot. I hope that they play him 31 minutes a night. I do not have faith that they will, but of course, what we do is we like the opportunity, we get ahead of it, and we see where we go. My main point with Scoot before was, grab him and see, but I don't know that this means that they're going to just lock in with him as a starter, and obviously they didn't, but they played him in big minutes, and that's a great sign. I love what Scoot is doing. I don't have the high-level All-NBA upside on him that I used to, but I still think he could be way better than whatever this clown show has been that's afforded whatever's going on here. In the Thunder situation, there's no Hartenstein, there's no Holmgren, so Pig Williams is on the menu. First game, struggled. A lot of fouls. Second game, pretty good. And a pretty good center is worth at least... Well, he's not a pretty good center. He's a below-average backup center. But in terms of just maybe we stream in and maybe we get something there, it's okay. It's not a long-term thing. It's not even a necessarily we do it right now thing. It's a streaming level situation for Pig Williams. The 4th most added player for Sunday is the pencil, Harrison Barnes. And I can't believe I'm about to do it. Like, Barnesy. Why? I have no idea. What? I know that they're playing Sunday. I know that, so I guess that's part of it. And he's played 30 minutes the last 2 games, but I don't know, man. I don't think I would have bothered. Maybe I would have. I don't know. The next one, Mr. Black. Yeah, like Anthony Black's last game was pretty good. We've seen it all season. He's had a couple of good games, and he struggles in the other ones. I don't really think there's any necessity to add Anthony Black, but again, the Magic play on Sunday, so it makes sense to have a crack. And the last name on that list is the one I'm sure you've been waiting for. It's BDNR, Nick Richards. Now, Nick Richards' first game with the Suns was obviously, way better than I thought it would be. I did not think that he would... I thought he would come off the bench, and that happened. I did not think that he would play 30 minutes. He did. That was great. He was awesome in that game in the production state. It was fantastic. And there is every chance that my assessment of Nick Richards is wrong. That could easily be true. My major point with Richards is I don't think that he's this awesome game-changing center. I know that Mason Plumlee is bad. I know that. I think Oso Ighodaro is fine, a little bit undersized. My hesitance with Richards was, A, we have seen him start before, and he has been mid at best. We have seen that. My hesitance is that every single number, stat, advanced stat suggests he's not very good at being an impactful basketball player. Neither of the other guys, but Budenholzer can mix and match, and that was my fear, that with so many different options, he would mix and match guys. And maybe he still will. Yeah, after the first game, it looks like me saying, I'm not sure about Richards, looks wrong. And it very easily could be. That's cool. It very easily could be. But I would also suggest that what we got from Richards in game 1 is absolutely completely unsustainable. Not because I think Plumlee's going to play 30 minutes a night, but because Richards had an 85% true shooting. He got to the line 9 times. He shot 86% from the field or whatever it was. Those things aren't going to be what happens. And I know that people will throw out the thing, well, that's what happens when you play with better teammates. Not really. That's not really what happens, because Mason Plumlee got worse playing with better teammates. Yusuf Nurkic this season got worse. Ivica Zubac was playing the Clippers last season, then they lost Paul George and he got better, playing with worse teammates. Bradley Beal went from the Wizards to the Suns to play with better teammates and got worse. So there's not a blanket rule with this stuff. It's not, well, you're playing with the better teammates, you are going to be better. That is just not how it works. It works if you pick out the specific examples where it works, but it is not a blanket thing. It happens all over the place where someone goes to a situation where their teammates are better and it makes them worse. There are situations where you go to a spot where your teammates are better and it makes them better. The thing that I would look at with that Richards thing, the games were great. The minutes were great. That's fine. It doesn't matter because he's not going to be an 87% shooter. That's just not going to be something that happens. That's not. And we'll see what they decide to do. But obviously, he's been added in. He's only sitting at 40% rostered. So yeah, look, going at him. And it very much looks like that me being even somewhat hesitant on him is wrong. Cool. I'd also like to give it more than one game before we make massive proclamations about how good this is going to be as we move forward. Is that fair? It's probably not. Someone's going to be rage baiting or not rage. I'm rage baiting with the thumbnail. Someone's going to be responding and going off this. I know that. That's cool. But I think most of that is relatively reasonable. But I guess not. Maybe it's not. Maybe it's not as well. That's okay. Today's episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. As basketball season heats up, we've got new GOATs dropping every week. First it's Vooch, now it's Nick Richards. And when you want to get your basketball knowledge down, Prize Picks makes it fun and easy to turn basketball knowledge into cash. Here's how it works. You got at least 2 players, the individual stat projections, you just choose more or you choose less. And you can win up to 1,000 times your cash. You choose the points number. Maybe they'll set Nick Richards at 11 rebounds. You go, well, more or less. You go, well, he's the GOAT. He's going to get like 50 Wilt style. That's cool. You go more. Or maybe they'll set the assists on, who should we put in there? Let's say Isaiah Collier. I don't know what it'll be, but maybe you go more or less on that. Chuck it in there. That's a weird name to bring up, Josh, but that's okay. Prize Picks enables you to put that knowledge into action, and if you do win, well, you can get paid out very fast, in as little as 15 minutes sometimes. Now it's the perfect time to join. Download the app today and use the code LOCKEDONNBA to get $50 instantly when you play your first $5 lineup. That is right. There is no need to win to get the bonus. It is guaranteed. Prize Picks, run your game. Okay, the next batch of most added players. I think there's a lot to talk about in these most added sections, just with names that have been added, and they're the buzzy sort of names. We go to Fantrax to see who's been added across there. These names are a little bit different. It's more of a longer term view. It's a 7-day reporting period. The number one there is Aaron Wiggins, who not really. We're not worried about Aaron Wiggins in 10 or 12 team leagues for the most part. You use it when there's a schedule advantage, which there was at the end of this week, but that's about it. And then the same goes with Kyshawn Wallace. In terms of the schedule, now Wallace is probably a category league must at the moment. It is up and down in terms of everything you get from him apart from steals. You get the occasional block in there, but I don't mind having him on a roster. I think he's worthwhile for category leagues. Points leagues, not as much. The easy way for you to determine that in the points league, though, is go look at what Kyshawn Wallace averages in your points league. How does that compare to your worst and second worst players, and does that make sense for you? Isaiah Collier, the third most added player on Fantrax, and it's just hard to know, isn't it? If you're in a category league, the fact that he gives you 7, 8 assists almost every single night is insanely valuable. And I think that he probably is worth adding. But at any point, they might play him 12 minutes. I actually don't think they will, but it is possible, especially with all the ins and outs that are happening there. Vic Krejci, the fourth most added player, he'd been playing really good minutes and putting up good numbers. Jalen Johnson returned. He still started with Zachary Ricochet out, but the production dipped a little bit. He's okay. It's probably more 14-teamers. Zaire Williams is the next one. Again, he's very Vic Krejci-like, where if you've got him on your roster, I think you go, okay, these are nice numbers. But there's a lot of uncertainty. I think until we get official sort of stuff on Johnson and Thomas and what they do with Russell or Simmons or whatever, he's going to be sort of in and out in 24 minutes and 27 minutes, and there's 11 points, there's a couple of steals, and it's 30% shooting, or it's 40%. It's going to be all over the place for Williams. So he's one where, if you hit the right day, that's great. Otherwise, you're sort of doing it and waiting to see how it transpires 3 weeks in. And the next most added player on Fantrax was Lonzo Ball, who is playing 24 to 25 minutes a night. Given the glut of guards there, and I do think we're going to see a pretty significant hit here on Josh Giddey moving forward, it is hard to see Lonzo's actual upside push that high, but getting 24 a night makes him worth a category add, I think, at this point. But with Dosunmu, Giddey, Levine, White, and Ball all there, it is hard. It is hard to see how that value is there every single night. In terms of most dropped players, on Basketball Monster, number one most dropped player is Quentin Grimes. Yes, cool. Kyrie is back. Grimes' minutes dropped in the last game. Now, when we talk about Grimes dropping and playing 18 minutes, I think it was, in the last game, that doesn't mean that he plays 18 every night. We don't look at that and go, well, obviously he's going to be an 18-minute a night player every night. The way that I like to look at that is go, okay, so he's coming off the bench. There's the possibility that he has a great game and plays 28 minutes, or there's a possibility he has a bad one and plays 20. That level of variability makes it not someone that I need to hold. I can use him and I can take desperation stabs at it, but that's not a guy that needs to be held when there's that much fluctuation. If he was a starter and played 32 minutes and had 20 points, then the next game he played 30 minutes and had 8 points on 2 of 6 shooting, I'd go, actually I'm inclined to hold that because the role is there. We just had a weird volume and shooting downturn. But if you're coming off the bench and the best case caps you at 28, but there are some nights you play 20, that's not worth it because you've got to somehow figure out the right day when it goes off to use it or to add him or to stream him or whatever, and that's not useful. That's impossible to do for the vast majority of times. The two most dropped players next are both Keons, Alice and Johnson. Yeah, I get it. This goes back to my earlier discussion. While the Kings are healthy, there's no business for Keon Ellis to be on a 12-team roster. There's none. If you're in a daily changer spot, that is a loss. You'll be the 200th best player, and you just take an L's. But if you're at the top of your standings, you're in weekly changes, you've got an ability to stash someone, then do it. Because if Keegan goes down, or DeMar goes down, or Monk goes down, or Fox goes down, Alice will play 30 plus, and it'll be really useful. But whether I can tell you that that's the right thing for your team or not, I can't. Because I don't know the individual circumstances that you're under. Keon Johnson, the next most dropped player, he had a nice little run of things. He's going to be inefficient, but we saw the minutes dip with D'Angelo Russell back. Add him back later. Don't think you're missing out on huge things if you drop him. That's cool. Noah Clowney, most dropped. Also totally cool. My opinion on Clowney is often misrepresented. I think that Noah Clowney is the Nets' best prospect. That doesn't change. I still think that. I think that Noah Clowney's game is completely unrefined at the moment. I am very confused at why he's not blocking shots, considering he's contesting more shots than he did last season. That's okay as well. That stuff happens. And I do think that once we head into March, we'll get a tighter band, a tighter narrowing of best and worst performances from Clancy. At the moment, we're not getting anything. What is encouraging is he gets shots and he's getting minutes. But also, for now, I think for the next 4 to 5 weeks, he's going to be very mid to bad. There'll be some good games in there, and you can definitely stream him in. And the appeal of the minutes and the role they're giving him is interesting. But also, I'm not here saying that Noah Clowney is a must-roster player or that he's going to be awesome. I don't believe that. I think long-term, there is a real chance he can be very good. But he's not there yet. He's nowhere near that. There are a few anomalies in his game at the moment that can easily be adjusted or can be improved upon very quickly, because a lot of the baseline stuff that is sort of hidden in numbers isn't really readily available on the surface of the box score. But if you want to drop him, go ahead. Like, he's not doing anything good. And I actually think it's going to be a while before we get to a level of consistency, if it comes at all. Andrew Nembhard dropped. Get it. Everyone's back. They got 2 games in 7 nights, 2 games in 8 nights. Absolutely no reason, I don't think, in a daily changes league to hold on to a guy that might be the 130th best player over a period of time. But much like Keon Ellis, if 1 or 2 guys get hurt, he'll jump up. But can you afford that? And the last one there is Jaime Jaquez Jr. Jimmy Butler is back, but Jaquez was already playing poorly before Butler returned. And like I said, the absolute best case scenario for Jaquez was those games where Butler was suspended. And even then, he had like 1 or 2 good ones and everything else was like, I don't think he's very good. I don't think the opportunity was there for him to be this huge league-winning ad. Drop him. I think that one's self-explanatory. On Yahoo, the most dropped players. We go Grayson Allen. Totally reasonable. He's going to sit around the periphery of most leagues. Yeah, 3-3 some night, absolutely. 30 minutes some nights, cool. 22 some others, cool. The 240 game in Phoenix is tough. Him, O'Neal, Dunn, Jones, Booker, Durant, they've all got to play. You could make arguments for all of them to be 30-minute guys. They all can't be. So someone's going to miss out, and Allen's going to miss out a lot. Tim Hardaway and Asar Thompson, the most dropped players after that. Tim Hardaway, the absolute perfect example of trying to chase scoring. 20 points or 7? When does it come? I don't know. If you do have Tim Hardaway, you're better off just committing to him for like 2 weeks, and then maybe you get enough games for it to make it worthwhile. But of course, if you did that over the course of this entire season, I go, well, there's enough good ones in there. It doesn't work out because he has been bad the majority of the time. So yeah, cool. And the other one, Asar Thompson. We love Asar. We're all big into Asar. We all love what he can do. But the reality is he's not there. He's nowhere near it. He's not getting 30 minutes. He's not close to getting 30 minutes. He's not really even getting 25 on average. And the fit in terms of his lack of spacing with Cade is causing problems. So I do not think that you don't have to drop him. You don't need to hold him though. Buddy Hield, most drop. The Buddy Hield cycle. How many times have we had the Buddy Hield cycle this season? Cool. Jaden McDaniels drop. Yep, drop him. And then when they play again, add him. That's how it works. And then Ben Mathurin's? I don't know. Multiple Ben Mathurin's. That'd be bad, wouldn't it? They don't play. Obviously, he's getting squished with minutes and production. I think that's a relatively easy call to drop him as well. We've got more stuff to talk about on this Waiver Wire show. Today's episode, though, is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. The NFL playoffs, well, they're absolutely rolling. Detroit fans, I commiserate with you. Washington fans, miracle run. Who knows? But FanDuel's going to be there with you from the first whistle to the final drive. And new customers, if you bet $5 on FanDuel, you can get $300 in bonus bets if you win your first bet. That is $300 to keep the action going. The FanDuel app is easy to navigate, and a variety of bets are there to keep everything just rolling along nicely. Spreads and money lines and player props and first touchdown scores. It's all there over on FanDuel. So go to FanDuel.com and join today and get started with $300 in bonus bets. That is FanDuel.com. Make this playoff season unforgettable with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. And don't forget to gamble responsibly. Let's go through the final list of most dropped players, and it's on Fantrax. And I think there's a few of these here that are important. Justin Champagnie, the Wizards box score yesterday against the Warriors, they just said, right, we're going Thibodeau. They played 8 guys. 8 only. Champagnie got 0 minutes. Butler got 0. And that's part of, I think, the two-way contract squeeze coming in. Champagnie had great value when 3 forwards were out earlier in the season. And he might have a run of things later on in the year. Holding on to him now is just completely torching a roster, though. No need to do it. Herb Jones, I don't think we see him again this season. He's been dropped. Easy. Scottie Pippen didn't even start last game with Morant out. They went with Kennard. So easy drop as well. Duncan Robinson, not sure why he was rostered. He's an easy drop. BJ Boston, easy drop. Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, not sure he's as easy of a drop, and I'm not a big KCP guy. Not sure if you've ever heard me say anything about that. But Kentavious Caldwell-Pope is fine. There's no upside in him. He's low value. He's okay. And you use him when the schedule makes sense, when you're looking for specific categories to target. That's all cool. But overall, he's not a priority. He's fine, but he's not a priority, is how I would phrase that. I'm talking must-roster guys. Now, this is not just like, you don't have to drop everything to go and grab them. I just think that it's someone in your league should have these guys on a roster. They should. Number one there is Tari Eason. And this one, it's always, and I said this the other day, it's always a hard thing when someone's out every day, questionable, every day, for a month, which is what Eason was. You go, like, at some point, there's got to be the right spot to say, well, we can't hold this. We don't know when he's coming back. We don't know what they're going to do when he comes back. The longer he's out, the longer it feels like he's going to be to get back to a full load of minutes. And I was like, all right, we're done. Like, how do you hold on to this? And of course, like 3 days later, he came back and he was straight into big minutes. Well, big enough, because he played like 22 minutes a night before he got hurt. And now he's playing 24, 25. And he looked great. So you add him. It doesn't mean it's going to last long term, but that's cool. I think Oubre Jr. is a must roster, and I hate saying that because I don't think Oubre is a very good player. I don't think he's a very good fantasy guy, but when you pump 38 minutes a night into someone, then at some point, the volume of what they're doing just makes it worthwhile. Maybe. I've had Oubre on my teams, I reckon, 5 times this season. It's like, he's there and I go, okay, I need to drop someone. I guess it's a goodbye, Kelly. Then I go to the waiver wire the next week and go, maybe I just go re-add Kelly Oubre. It's frustrating. Dante DiVincenzo. People dropped him after the toe injury. He just needs to be on rosters. I think that's simple. And same with Andrew Wiggins. Andrew Wiggins has been floating around on waiver wires all season. I don't really get it. He was a guy that obviously struggled the year before. I liked targeting him late in drafts. I'd say he's been totally reasonable this season. That's okay. And then DeAndre Hunter sits at 42% rostered. Now me, I'm not a DeAndre Hunter fan. I'm not a DeAndre Hunter glazer at all. I try to provide reasonable outcomes and takes on what he provides. But him being dropped and sitting in that many leagues is pretty wild to me. Yeah, he is a 3-point percentage, field goal percentage merchant. If he doesn't shoot well above average, he gives you nothing. But 40% rostered is crazy. And again, I don't think he's very good, and I don't think that he's this awesome top 50 guy, and I've said that many times, and obviously that is true. It is true. But he should be on somebody's roster, surely. That's pretty wild to me. Who are droppable guys? Well, again, I will just provide what I mean by this. Do I mean that you have to go and get rid of them? No, of course not. What? No. Everyone's individual circumstance is different. But the thing that I wanted to always highlight with these names is if they're on your roster, and you look at your roster and you go, I've got this player. Do I need to have this player? Could I do better? And that's sort of what I'm highlighting. So I've got Kyle Kuzma there. For some of you, he won't be droppable. It will make complete sense to hold on to him. I can't figure out what the hell happens with this guy. Some guys it's 20 points and it's 5 points. And no shots and there's 30 shots. And then he's in, then he's out. It feels like he's not going to play out the season. I have no idea. But the ups and downs, the percentage frustrations with him as well, means that for some of you, it'll just make more sense to be like, I just don't want to deal with it. There's not enough, because in the past, he'd like, okay, I'm going to get 20 points, 5 rebounds, 3.5 assists, consistently. Yeah, I'll have bad field goal nights and free throws, and that'll be a problem, and I don't get many defensive stats. And you go, okay, I deal with that. I know how to do that on my team. But now, if you get 22 points, you go, man, why did I drop him? The next game, 6 points. You go, why have I got him? And that up and down means you can't offset all the other bad stuff as easily. I've got Dennis Schroeder on the list. Now, of course, if Steph Curry does happen to miss time with an ankle tweak from yesterday, then Schroeder is a guy you hold on to through that scenario. And he was really good in the game yesterday against the Wizards. He was very good. Every other game has been terrible. But of course, if Steph is out, you hold. But that's what I mean. He is droppable unless the circumstances are different. Aaron Gordon, I think, is droppable. Again, you don't have to. His role is sort of up and down. He's coming off the bench. He will start eventually at some point, I guess. But even in best case scenarios, what is Aaron Gordon giving you? The 100th best player in certain punt builds? Like points league 110? Is that really worth holding and waiting for it to happen? For some of you, yes. For some of you, no. I've got Jonas Valanciunas on this list who just continues to be like, fine. Like, if you want to have him, absolutely fine. If you are thinking that he's going to get traded into a great situation and be back to being great, which again, Valanciunas hasn't been a great player for a long time, but okay, do it. Can he easily get 14 and 10 in 24 minutes if he gets that? Yes. That is all true. But it's also very, very far from a guarantee. He's not a very good defender. He doesn't shoot the ball very well. He's a guy that can be somewhat antiquated. And there's a reason that the team that signed him was the Wizards to be an $11 million a year backup. There is a reason that is what his market was. And you can say the reason is the Wizards did that to trade him. That's cool. But you know what? He has to agree to that. He has to agree when they go, hey, bro, we're going to give you a contract that's way less than you're being paid before, but the only reason we're doing it is so we can get rid of you later on. And by the way, we're going to play you 17 minutes a night in the process. And he went, yep, that's clearly my best option, which to me suggests that other teams didn't value him better than that. Because you wouldn't be like, can I go to a really bad team and be a backup, and hopefully then I get traded? That to me, that doesn't really add up as like the best career path for Valanciunas if other teams were showing tremendous interest in him. This all goes back to, again, like, is he worth holding? Sure. Are the Lakers going to get him, and then him and AD are the powerful front court? No, he'll be Anthony Davis's backup. So I don't really get it. Christian Braun, I think, is droppable. What's he doing that's good? I think that's a simple question. He was great to begin the year. That's gone. That's a, let's say, 6-week run of good play, and then the rest has been mid. Again, fine to hold him. But who's the odd man out between Gordon, Westbrook, and Brown? In terms of losing minutes, it's probably Brown. The last name on there is Yusuf Nurkic. Yeah, he might get traded, but he probably doesn't. He's not going to play in Phoenix. I still think he's not a terrible player. I know people think he's the worst player in the world. I don't think he's a terrible player. Most of his numbers actually make him look better than the other centers on the roster, including BDNR. But he's not going to play, so it doesn't matter. Just move on. He's not going to play in Phoenix. Let's talk about hot players over the last week. The names that we haven't mentioned anyway. Top of that list is Drew Eubanks, who's the 61st ranked player. Now that's largely because Walker Kessler rested some games and John Collins has been out. But it's worth noting that if Kessler misses time, Eubanks is going to be worth grabbing. I don't think you need to do it now, but again, stashability, maybe you want to do it. Ben Simmons is the 69th ranked player. I think that at the moment, again, it's for very specific scenarios, and we know that Simmons is going to sit games. But he's doing enough to be on rosters. Now, Superman, Kel'el Ware, he's ranked 72nd over the last week. One of those was a huge game, a start without Bam Adebayo, so it skews that number. Now, there are a few things we've said about Kel'el. I think he's going to be good. I think he's going to have multiple top 50 NBA fantasy seasons. I think he's a future starting player in the NBA. But one of the things we said, we need a couple of things to happen here. Either Bam Adebayo needs to get hurt, Bam Adebayo needs to be traded, which probably unlikely, or Spoelstra needs to play them together. And prior to today, that had happened for about 20 seconds. But the game that is currently happening right now against the San Antonio Spurs, Kel'el Ware played, I think it was 15 first half minutes, and Bam played 15 as well. And then to start the second half, notorious roller coaster Haywood Highsmith was benched. And guess who started? Kel'el Ware. That's what we need. Now, that could be a Victor Wembanyama matchup thing. I've got no idea. But that has not happened in the 48 games or whatever it is that we've seen Miami play this season. We have not seen this happen at all. It makes sense that it would work at some point, maybe, if they wanted to try it, but they have not done it ever. And they are doing it now. So, add him. Do it. If he plays 25 a night, which has been the number we've talked about all the way through, that is enough. And the way to get it was either Bam being hurt, those guys having a minute split at center, not likely at all, not going to happen, or playing at power forward. And where, or whoever you want to call the power forward, Bam or Ware, however you want to say it. But playing together is the way that it could happen, one of the ways it could happen. It's happening now. Let's do it. Let's see where it goes. Because that is real upside. It might not happen in any other game. But it happened now. Spoelstra has been resistant to it for almost 2/3 of the season. How far actually are we into the season? Well, 50% actually, so my bad. We're 50% of the way through the season, so not 50 games, 41 games, 43 games, whatever it is. It hasn't happened at all. And it's happening now. So now, go add Kel'el Ware. That is one of the things you needed to happen, and it's happened. More. Cole Anthony's a 73rd ranked player. I actually think that is worth having, at least until something changes, like Jalen Suggs returning. Isaiah Collier is the 74th ranked player. Yeah, Jordan Clarkson, I don't think he's playing again this season. So Collier, even though he's coming off the bench, could get 27 a night. That's 8 assists, maybe. He could also average 7 points on 20%. That's possible too. But I do think that we should be rostering him at the moment. And then Najee Marshall, 78th. I'm not as in on that one. He's fine, but it's going to be him and Dinwiddie and Grimes sort of mixing and matching their production and when it's streaming time and Schedule Plus stuff. For Marshall, yeah, we do it. That's probably about it, I would say. Some injury type options we can look at. Draymond Green, I do think he's going to be out a while here. I'm ready. I know it's tough, and I know Warriors fans last season hated when I put it onto Clay. Then, of course, I put it onto Steph as a joke. But I think Draymond's washed for a few reasons. Actually, one, I think his body's done. That's my worry. These are ongoing back issues. Remember, he had the thing in Clay's return game where something was. I think it was his calf then as well, where like he pinged it, then like he came out, played 30 seconds, and left because it was the return game, and he was out for months. So he's been out with a back issue. He came back from the back issue here. He hurt his calf 2 minutes in. And they're calling it tightness, which of course is NBA code for, he's ripped the shit out of it. I think that's a long-term thing for Green. And the guy they've been playing there is Moses Moody. It is worth mentioning that the guy playing at power forward is Moses Moody at the moment because Jonathan Kuminga is out and Kyle Anderson is out. I like Moody a lot as a player. I think he's been mishandled quite a bit in Golden State. But I also know that, is he the long-term power forward solution there? Kuminga's still a while away, but Anderson literally started the last time he was healthy when Green was out. So Moody's fine to have a look at and to stream, but I'm not going to have overly high level of confidence. With Karl Anthony Towns out, the Knicks are starting Jericho Sims, but Precious Achiuwa gets most minutes. Now, I don't think that Achiuwa is a very good player either, but he might get 2 blocks, 2 steals, 10 rebounds, 10 points. That's useful in the short term to stream. Brandon Miller, I believe, is done for the season. I don't know that for a fact, but what I do know is that last game they didn't start Seth Curry, they started Nick Smith Jr. And Nick Smith Jr. had already pushed into a backup role, taking Vasa Micic, Isaiah Wong, and KJ Simpson's minutes away. And if he starts, he will have some absolutely ranted shooting nights. But he can get a steal or 2, he can get some assists, he can score, he can hit some threes. The question you're going to say is, what about Trey Mann? I also don't think Trey Mann's coming back. He might, and Trey Mann is a better option than Nick Smith. But he played like 4 games. He's had a back injury the whole way through. Every part of the messaging they suggested about Mann suggests that he is a long-term and probably not coming back situation. So Smith is probably not a 12-team guy, but I think he's going to be knocking on the door there. Just think of it's like a Bryce Sensabaugh sort of a player, but with more assists. I got Adam Boner there because Drummond is dealing with a toe injury, Yabusele is dealing with a knee injury, and Embiid's dealing with everything that he deals with. That's a deeper league play, but I thought Boner was very good last game. He is not going to be a 10 or a 12 or a 14 team league guy, but he's a name that you need to know about because everyone's banged up there. I've got Cam Whitmore on this list as an injury play because with Amen Thompson out, with Jabari Smith out, there is more for Whitmore to do. He is not a 12-team must-roster player at all. But while Amen is out, if that's even a long-term thing, Whitmore is worth streaming. And the last name there is Kyle Anderson again. So I've bookended it with Moses Moody and Kyle Anderson. Because if Kyle Anderson starts and plays 27 a night, you get the Kyle Anderson special. What is it, like 8, 5, and 5 with the 1.5 steals? Which is not good for everybody, but it's fine for a lot of people. So he is on that list if he returns and plays soon. 6 other names I want to talk about. Number 1 is Bub Carrington. Minutes have not been a problem for Carrington all season. They've been pretty good. I don't know if or when Brogdon is coming back. But Carrington did start ahead of Brogdon before Brogdon's latest foot injury. But Bub's problem has been he's an 8-point scorer. He just doesn't get any usage. So I know that it's easier to hold and say, let's wait until this happens. I'm not sure the payoff's actually going to be worth it. So I don't think I'd bother with it. Robert Williams III. He started last game with Ayton and Klingon out. Didn't do anything good. He's also one of those ones like Draymond Green that I think the body just might be cooked. And they've got a great schedule coming up, especially the end of this week 14. But one of them is a back-to-back that he's probably not going to play. So stream him, sure, but reliability not there. Micah Potter. Yeah, maybe. But he's also been dealing with an illness, but he's shown some ability at times to be useful. But he's in that mix of the Filipowski, Potter, Eubanks, goblet of bullshit that we're getting with that group. Some days it'll be Potter. You don't want to rely upon it, but he's at least someone to look at. The next name that I see getting added is GG Jackson. People love GG Jackson. I like GG Jackson. I think GG Jackson has potential to develop into a very good player. He's incredibly young still. Like, incredibly young. I believe he just turned 20 like 3 weeks ago. He hasn't played at all this season. But I don't believe that he comes into this Grizzlies team, starts after a broken foot, and takes usage away from Bane, Jackson, and Morant. And all the other names that are in that mix getting minutes. He can be a rotation guy somewhat, but people are adding him thinking he's a 12-team league guy. I don't see it at all. I'd love to be wrong, because I like him as a player, but he's got a lot of discrepancies in his game, or deficiencies in his game, more to the point, where it needs a lot of guys to get out of the way, or for him to take a gigantic step forward. I'm not sure he has. Jalen Wells, his teammate, has been rock solid in terms of the role, started basically every game. He realistically is just a 3-point streamer, though. He'll have some strong stretches, and he'll play 30 minutes and have 12 points with 4 threes, and then he'll start and play 21 minutes for 7 points on 28% shooting. And that is no more than a streamer. And the last name there is Toumani Camara, whose role is relatively solid. Last game, very good. The games before that, 20% shooting. He, to me, is a steals streamer with a solid value floor and a limited upside. He might be better at some point. Also, he's good. I think people delude themselves into thinking that he's a core piece for the Blazers. I'm not talking about fantasy, but I'm talking about just people in general in the NBA. He's good. He's solid. He's useful. But I think there's an overvaluation of what Toumani does. But the schedule's great for this week for the Blazers. So therefore, Toumani Camara is worth our attention. So that is it. That is a waiver wire show. Again, I do understand the frustration. I'm frustrated about the Nick Richards thing because, again, it very much looks like that I was wrong saying he's not the greatest. No, that's not true. That's over. Like, to be actually completely honest with you, it looks like that he might play 30 minutes a night, and I didn't think that. I've watched Nick Richards play. I don't think he's very good. That's a simple thing that I think. I don't think he's very good, and I didn't think that the Suns would go, he is great. We are playing 32 minutes a night of Nick Richards. That is all solid. That is not what I thought, but it looks like that could easily be wrong. I think it's also worth acknowledging that he won't be as good as he was in that first game. It is actually impossible for him to be as good as he was in that game. And I still think there's a lot of water to go under the bridge about it, but I hate that I looked at it and went, I don't think he's very good. And then he came out and they played him a lot of minutes and he looked great in that first game. And that could be a huge misread for me, and I apologize for that. I don't want it. The book is not written, but obviously it doesn't look great. I also think that the idea of him being a top 60 player is actually foolish, and I don't think he's going to be that at all. But we watch, we wait, we learn, we listen, and we don't judge. But what we do is we subscribe. We hit a thumb, and we leave comments down below. And as I sit here and beat myself up over thinking about Nick Richards, I've also got to make sure that I think about, hey, what did I do that was good today? Well, today's only started, so not much, but there will be something. And I know there'll be something. Well, you know what I did? I got up on time. There you go. That's my thing. What's yours? Guys, we are done here. Thank you so much for listening, everyone. See ya.